Hello and welcome back to a very special episode of the Prymal podcast. Today's guest is Mr. Mark Tobin, a coach and owner of Strive Coaching, and Mark is with me today specifically to raise awareness for an incredible challenge he'll be completing in August of this year. Mark's fiancée Lisa was diagnosed at the age of 10 with an inflammatory bowel disease called Crohn's disease. Now, I know what this disease is, but I don't know anyone personally who has it, so I didn't have a full understanding of what it's like to actually live with. And Mark did just a brilliant job of breaking down what life looks like for people who suffer with the condition, not just from a symptom point of view, but also all of the struggles that they can face socially with the stigma, embarrassment and sense of isolation that can surround the people who suffer. And the reason we're releasing this episode today is that in a couple of weeks, on August 14th, 2021, Mark is going to run 174 kilometres across the mountains to raise awareness and funding for the ISCC, the Irish Society for Colitis and Crohns Disease, in an event that he's calling Walk a Mile in My Shoes. Just an incredible thing to do. This is a brilliant episode that taught me a lot about Crohn's disease, and if you're able to, Mark and Lisa would really appreciate any support that you can give for this event. The link that you'll need is in our bio on Instagram, and it'll also be attached to the show notes wherever you're listening to this podcast. So without further ado, let's get into it with Mr. Mark Tobin. Welcome to our shared journey to find the answers to questions about health, wellness, nutrition, performance, life and success, and to craft the most resilient, hardy and happy humans you've ever seen. Welcome to the Prymal podcast. Mr. Mark Tobin.
How are you, Dan?
I'm very good, thank you. Welcome. Well, two welcomes, right? So welcome number one to the Prymal podcast. Thanks very much for coming on as a guest. And just so people know, it's a slightly special episode we're doing today. We're raising awareness here with this episode today. But also welcome as a Prymal client, as a Prymal podcaster. Mark is joining the clan. He will have, maybe by the time this goes out, we might have launched the first episode. I'm not quite sure yet. But Mark has joined the podcasting family as well, so congratulations.
Appreciate it.
And actually, welcome to fatherhood. Congratulations. So for people who are listening to this episode, the reason I say it's a slightly different and slightly special episode is we are going to be focusing on one particular subject, which is Crohn's disease.
It is.
Which is something that you obviously have a lot of personal experience with.
Yeah.
And the whole point here really is to kind of give people an idea of what is Crohn's if they're not familiar. But more importantly, which we discussed just before we turned the mics on here, is what's it like to have this as part of your life? Because I find sometimes that many people know what all these different conditions and illnesses and diseases and things are, but until it touches someone close to them, it doesn't really make sense. So when they hear about raising awareness and events and stuff like that, it doesn't really kind of click in their brain. And I'm saying this as a person who, this happens to me as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes unless I know someone who has something, I'm like, it doesn't really...
It's not relatable.
It's not really relatable,
Yeah.
So that the whole point here is to try and kind of paint a picture for people from somebody who has a lot of experience. So would you mind giving us, first of all, just a little bit of background on yourself, because you are in this industry anyway, in health and wellness, and then maybe we can go into discussing Crohn's itself and shine a bit of light on that.
Yeah, so currently I am an online coach, okay, which is the aim for me and my business is to keep people to stay strong and live long. And that's through nutrition, exercise, healthy habits, and just being happy in their lives, all right, that they have the strength and ability to play with kids, play with grandkids, and then just go off and do whatever they like to do, whether it's walking mountains, fishing, anything at all. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell and what I do for a living. And obviously a passion then outside of that is a lot of long endurance events, which we will touch on.
Why is this so common nowadays? Everyone makes me feel so unfit and unworthy when they come in here with their, I just ran 40 miles there this morning, or 400 miles in some cases.
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
It's years in the making, so...
Okay, yeah. And obviously with your coaching service, you cover all aspects of lifestyle.
Yeah, so I deal with the general population. So every just normal Joe sober that is looking to lose a bit of weight, as I said, get fit or get strong or just feel better in themselves, because people don't like the way they look. It's the popular one, but just not functioning normally is like you should be just feeling good in yourself and being able to do normal things, walking up and down the stairs, endure 7 or 8 hour shift in work, which a lot of people can't do anymore. and just getting them back to being a decent, feeling good in themselves human.
Yeah. I'm already gonna go off topic here now, because you said something there, and I actually just spoke to Andy Myers about this as well, and I've spoken to Neil O'Keefe about this too, and you said look good. And this is something I often talk to people about, because sometimes it gets a bad rap.
Yeah.
This is what I said with Neil and with Andy as well. And people are kind of, nowadays with the Instagram culture, we've kind of taken a spin about being a little bit kind of, you can't talk to people about trying to look good, because you have to be body positive, and you can look whatever way you want. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. You can be proud of whatever way you look. There's no problem with that. But there's also no problem with somebody wanting to look good. And I think that most people want to look good, and
Absolutely.
there's no problem with that. What kind of look good comments when people come into you, did it literally say, I want to change how I look?
So majority will be like, I want to lose weight, and I want to just look better in myself. And with that, like a lot of people, as you just touched on there, they won't be coming to me for aesthetics, like bodybuilding competitions or like photo shoot preps. It's just to lose that initial couple of kilos or couple of pounds to look when they see themselves in the mirror. And I always say to people, when you get over a shower and you look in yourself, or look at yourself in the mirror naked, are you happy with who's looking back at you? And 9 times out of 10 you'll be told no. So it's just getting people to then look at themselves in the mirror and be like, oh yeah, actually I'm improving, or I'm starting to like who's looking back at me now.
Why do you think that's important to people?
Because it's self-confidence. People lack that self-confidence, and I don't come at it from a place of if you're not confident in your body, or your body's out of shape, that you lack confidence. So for people to see themselves a little bit slimmer, it automatically just clicks on and it switches in their brain that, oh, now I look good, and just they approach life in a different light.
Yeah.
And they just approach daily things in a completely different mindset, and from there, eating becomes that little bit easier. Exercise comes that little bit easier, because they can then see the ripple effect of the effects it's having on their body.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I promise we'll get back onto the topic now in 1 second. But I just want to back up what you said there, because obviously I think I told this story before. I worked in the hair restoration industry, ironically enough, for 10 years with Dr. Van Eden. And one of the most common things I saw was men, usually. Now, there was a lot of women coming in too, but men would come in with hair loss. And one of the very, very kind of common themes or things that they would say is that their relationships broke down. Marriages, they can't get a girlfriend, can't get a boyfriend, whatever it might be. And it was always because of my hair. But it actually wasn't because of their hair, because when they went through whatever process they went through and they managed to regrow hair or come to terms with the hair loss, whatever it was, it didn't really change. Their appearance doesn't change that much, but their sense of confidence changed. So I started to kind of do an unofficial survey with a bunch of women who came in asking them, nothing to do with their hair loss or anything like that, but just women I would see in general, women who came into the clinic, women who I knew in my life. I was like, is hair that important in terms of choosing a partner, or is it really what makes a difference? And everyone was, no. Now, personal preference, maybe 10% of women were like, yeah, he needs to have banging hair. But most women were like, not at all. I don't really care, actually, to be honest with you. Just like this big muscle thing, like most women are like, yeah, some women like it, which is fine, but most women like, I don't really care. It was the confidence of the person they were talking to. And these men that I met in particular, when they were losing their hair, completely lost their confidence.
Yeah.
So it was nothing to do with their hair loss. So just like with the body image and people wanting to look better, it's actually not trying to look better so someone else thinks I'm class. You feel better in yourself, absolutely. So, but it was just interesting to hear you. It's great that we're aligned there.
Yeah.
But what you also said there was you help people to try and live their lives.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in this, about becoming fit and healthy and strong and looking good and all this kind of stuff. For me, allows me to live my life better, because every day I can play with my children, or I can walk up and down the stairs, or whatever it is. Now, segue back to our original topic, coming back to Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
Obviously, somebody who has a disadvantage, like a condition like this, can't live their life as easy as the rest of us. And again, this is something I sometimes touch on as well, is that it's very easy for me to sit here and talk to you about all the great things we can do, and talk to all these wonderful guests I have on about all the wonderful things that I can do, because I'm lucky enough not to have any underlying conditions, and I can do all these things. But there are people, many people with many different conditions, Crohn's being one of them, that can't actually do a lot of the things that I can do. So maybe to start us off, Can you give us a bit of a kind of an outline on Crohn's and what exactly it involves?
Yeah, so Crohn's disease, Dan, is an IBD, and that's a irritable bowel disease. And its main effects is kind of from the throat to the rectum, so the whole gastrointestinal tract. And what it is basically is just the body is unable to digest food properly. Okay, so like ourselves, if you ate an apple, okay, or popcorn, okay, because it's probably a big trigger for a lot of people with Crohn's.
Is it?
Yeah, like the nuts and seeds and stuff like that. When you eat it, you'll go down the full digestive system and it'll come out to pretty much close enough to the same way you ate it.
Okay.
But with people that have Crohn's and stuff, they can get strictures and narrowings in the small intestine, their large intestine. A lot of people struggle with their small intestine. In Lisa's case, is completely different. It was her large intestine.
Lisa's your partner, just
Lisa,
for
sorry,
clarification.
yeah, is my partner, and it was her large intestine that was severely diseased, with polyps and strictures and narrowings and stuff. So, say if you ate that little bit of popcorn or an almond, and you didn't chew that to like an inch of its life, that then can go down into the large intestine and there be a little narrowing. So if you imagine, I don't know, a toilet roll holder, and you put half of that, say, half a golf ball in the middle of that toilet roll holder, when you try to eat and that almond goes through, you're then going to feel pain because it hasn't got the full toilet roll holder and now only has half of the size of the toilet roll holder in order to try push its way through.
So you have a massive narrowing.
So you have a massive, massive narrowing, and that then gives the severe abdominal pain, along with like the common symptoms of severe diarrhea, vomiting, malnutrition, fatigue levels, a massive one, and then the pain that these people go through.
Okay. Is this something you're born with or something you develop?
They don't know, but in Lisa's case again, she was diagnosed at the age of 10. Which she thinks her mum and herself, she was struggling from the age of 6 or 7 at least. So I think over time, as an autoimmune disease, it was probably developed, but they're still unsure of was it there underlying, and then just came to the surface in the later years.
Okay. And in terms of this affecting quality of life, obviously the first place to start is things you can eat.
Yeah.
There's probably many things you can't eat.
Yeah. Now, with Crohn's, obviously, everybody's case is different.
Yeah.
So you'll probably hear me pull it back to Lisa's case because although I've known a good few people with it, I've lived with her for the last 10 years. Okay. So with Lisa, we, in the early days of going out and stuff together, we would never rice. We could never go out for a takeaway.
Okay.
So you go out for a meal with your partner and stuff like that. We would always have to pick and choose where we'd go. So with that, Lisa was always, since the age of 10, pretty a plain eater. So chicken, some veg is a trigger food. Off the top of my head, if we're thinking the likes of broccoli being fibrous, so they struggle with a lot of fibre.
Okay.
So pretty much she was a plain eater. So pizzas, couldn't digest rices or anything of the sorts. Citrusy foods would cause a lot of acid reflux. Lisa also had no gallbladder, so that doesn't help.
Oh God. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, like it affects a lot of people in a different way. As I said, popcorn. So if you went to the cinema, you weren't getting your popcorns and a drink to sit there and chill. You would have, you probably just bring a drink and a bit of chocolate to just go in and chill out. But yeah, there's a lot of foods. I could probably sit here and list them off, so I won't get into the depths of it.
Of course, yeah.
But pretty much it's just, if you pull it back to kind of trying to go out for a meal, if you think yourself and your partner are going to go out, we go to a Nando's or we go to an Indian or whatever it is, just have that full reign where myself and Lisa were like, okay, can't go here because this is on the menu, can't go here because I can't eat this or that and that. So literally, what was the point of going out?
Yeah.
Because you'd be going out to literally ask the restaurant, can I have this without X, Y, and Z?
Yeah. And apart from the food thing, obviously, say you identified every food that was a trigger food, got rid of all those things. You're not done then.
No, you're not.
Yeah,
no.
there's a lot more.
There's a lot more to it. Yeah. And with like the foods stripped aside, when we would go out, so say if we went to the cinema and I was quite ignorant, I won't lie, to the fact what Crohn's was in the early days. And I was always questioning, why can't you do this?
Yeah.
Like, what's the actual effect that you can't go for a long walk, or we can't go for a walk around the hills, or and it took me a good few years, I won't lie, to come around and realise about this disease, and constantly seeing Lisa change on a daily basis of the fatigue levels.
Okay.
Planning was a massive one. So when we decided to, as I said, to go to the cinema, we would have to know where toilets were within of like a 2-minute radius.
Okay.
Because at the drop of a hat, depending on how bad your Crohn's is at one time, you're going to need to go to the toilet because you suffer so bad with diarrhea.
Okay.
And a lot of people, because they spend so many years trying to hold these things in certain situations, if they're out, or they're constantly, their muscles then begin to break down, so their holding power doesn't really hold.
Okay.
So if yourself or I need to go to the toilet, we could probably hold it out for a good while.
Yeah.
You spend 5 years doing that constantly, your muscles then will begin to weaken, and then they don't have that holding power. So you will have to know in a restaurant, can I use this toilet? They have cards now, so if you suffer with Crohn's, you have a card. A lot of places still won't believe, they don't know what this little card is, that I need to use this toilet.
Oh,
and
really?
you will be refused. Yeah, so many poor young girls have been refused, and you know what's going to happen if you're refused to go to the toilet and you have diarrhea. You have no other option. You don't have that holding power to hold it in, so you're going to end up going in your trousers. So planning is massive, realizing where the toilets are, just in order to know that she's comfortable, because with that is anxiety. If you are out somewhere that you know you've no toilet, anxiety is through the roof. That you've, like, I can only imagine, as probably yourself, when your somewhat stomach is upset and you go, oh, we're out and I need to go to the toilet, your levels of stress are heightened massively.
Through the roof, yeah.
So to deal with that on a daily basis is quite like bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, planning, fatigue then, like, so if you're constantly stressed, constantly looking for toilets, constantly on the go, you're fatigued, as like you or I would be if we're constantly in a level of stress. So fatigue levels is a massive one for Lisa. Okay, so over the years, I would see her, if we stayed over in the younger years, and to be on the couch, and you could see kind of how tired she was. You know, you tell people how tired your body is.
Yeah.
And physically not able to get up off the couch, and I'd be like, do you want to go for a walk, or do you want to, and be like, I physically cannot move my head off the armchair of this couch. And over time, it's just like, I don't get how this is happening.
Yeah.
But if you pull it back to not being able to eat certain foods because of malnutrition, they do not absorb nutrients the same way you or I would. So this all is just part and parcel of all coming back. And I think that one of the biggest things is diarrhea and the fatigue levels.
Okay.
And just fatigue in itself, not only me, pull me out of this for a minute, for Lisa herself, to have somewhat decent quality of life. You and I can go out with friends where Lisa gets a bad day, you're not moving off that couch.
Yeah.
You and I can get up and go to work. You can go for a few pints after your work and still get up the next day. Like, drink doesn't even come into a lot of people's Crohn. Like, people that have Crohn's will not drink because of what it can do to them. But not only that, they just can't function on a day-to-day basis. A 7 to 8 hour shift, you're wiped out. Good luck. And over the years, watching Lisa try, like, she went to college, has worked so many jobs, doing what she wanted to do, but then again can't really fulfill where she wants to be, because it's like, I do 3 days, 3 8-hour shifts. On that fourth day, I'm bedbound.
Wiped. Yeah.
Yeah, gone. And so that was one of the hardest things to kind of witness over the years. As I said, away from us as a couple, to see her not wanting to thrive and do so much with her own life, not having the ability to do so. And this is all coming back to the Crohn's.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, it's one of the main reasons I wanted to speak about this as well, is because with conditions like this that aren't, I won't say not life-threatening, because they do change your life, and I don't know, are there cases?
Yeah, some people can die, yeah.
So,
yeah.
so it is a life-threatening disease, but it's not something that you hear about very regularly in terms of the ratio of people that it affects. We have no idea, as people who aren't directly touching that, how many people are actually struggling like this. And the biggest kind of takeaway that I get from this is that level of anxiety, that nobody, you mentioned the card, and actually, if you wouldn't mind, if you'll send me a picture of that card, I'll put it up on the profile and on the show notes and stuff like that as well, just so people can kind of get familiar with what this looks like. But not being aware of how much stress and anxiety this can cause a person. And when you hear, it's like anything, when you hear about, oh, it's irritable bowel, people think like, I've had a bad curry and I don't feel great the next day, and that's what these people are suffering with. But it's everything you've described there. It's debilitating. That is a debilitating condition. You can't live your life, and like that kind of fatigue and an inability to do what we would regard as pretty normal activities.
Exactly.
That's crippling. That's absolutely crippling. So it's why I think gaining an understanding of something like that and having to put in perspective of an actual real life person here is very, very valuable for people to understand. In terms of treatment and stuff like that, how is this managed?
So the main things for Crohn's is immune suppressant drugs, the likes of Humira injections,
which come with their own challenges.
If you go into a massive flare up, the first thing you're going to be hit with is a dose of steroids.
Okay.
And that in its effect then you will gain weight, your body will change, your face shape will change. That in itself causes more anxiety, more confidence issues as well for people, because it's like, I'm on these dose of steroids and now all of a sudden I look like a beached whale. And that's the approach that people with Crohn's will see, because that's all they see themselves. But a lot of immune suppressant drugs, Lisa was on Humira, she was on infliximab. Infliximab I don't think didn't work. Humira worked for a short amount of time, and then it was surgery to remove the diseased affected areas. So for years her surgeon and her consultant in James's were kind of just, they'll all, not to put it across in a bad way, but they will try each immune suppressant drug until they're left with no other option. Okay. And it got to a stage where Lisa's like, I'm sick of trying. I'm not a guinea pig. I don't want to keep trying new drugs that might be coming out. I need an option to be able to go live my life. And some immune suppressant drugs aren't working for me currently. So what is the next option? And for some people, like, it was a brave thing to do, to go in and sit in front of your consultant and just come across them, tell them no. Like, yes, people will say, oh, I'm not doing that. But when push comes to shove, the consultant will normally win. Yeah. But it got to a stage where her consultant seen her as a human being, not being able to live her life. And that, I think, was a switch in him, because normally it's just, if you're sitting in a, as you would know, in a healthcare setting, it's a conveyor belt. Yeah. It's one in, one out, one in, one out. So for him to take that switch and like take his professional hat off for a minute and see Lisa as a human was a massive switch. And that then was the changing point for Lisa and herself, and that I think will start back 2017 and 2018. Okay. So that then was the start of surgeries for Lisa. Now she had little bits and bobs throughout her life, as I said, like her gallbladder and stuff. So Lisa's, as I touched on earlier on, was her large intestine and her rectum. So she actually had perianal disease as well. So that affects the rectum canal. So you imagine you have severe diarrhea and you have your rectum canal diseased. The pain that's going to cause anybody is just going to be horrible. Along, like, you have a dodgy curry, as you said. Yeah, of course. You're going to be in some pain for the next day or so anyway, or you get sick, you're diarrhea, you're sore. So to have a diseased part of bowel coming right there is like, it's horrible. They made the decision back in 2018 to have the first part of a surgery to give Lisa an ileostomy or a stoma. So that was to remove part of her large intestine, the most diseased part at that time. And what the surgeons do is remove the most diseased part and they pull part of that large intestine out, so what would seem healthy. So now she would not be going to the toilet like a normal person. She would now have a ileostomy, which is part of that large intestine that's pulled through the skin at the side of the belly button area, depending on where the surgeon decides the healthiest. And from there, they then go to toilet into a stoma bag, pretty much. So that was back in 2018. And for a good 6 months or whatever, because it's a massive surgery, you're spending 6 months recovering. Wow. Yeah. So again, it's back to, like, you're holding a pillow over your, like, in order to sit up or move. It's baby steps. You're like rolling out of bed. So you imagine you've an abdominal surgery, you're holding a pillow across your belly button. You have to get up onto your side. It's one leg at a time. It's the second leg, and then it's, you know, just it's slow process. The fatigue levels then on top of already what you would suffer coming out of a surgery with fatigue, it's just going to add that little bit more on top of that. But again, I always say, like, people with Crohn's and witnessing Lisa over the years, like, these people are warriors. Like, they are so strong, and they don't realize it in themselves. They think, oh, like, it's just what we deal with. Like, but for you and I to sit there and watch somebody over the, like, they deal with so much to get up, and as you said, do normal things that we just take for granted, and just go to work, go to the toilet, go up and down the stairs. But sorry, to pull it back to the surgeries, within those 6 months they were recovering, she then began to get a bit of quality of life, and it was a good sign. So for the next 6 months after the decent bit of recovery was done, we could then go for walks. Might not be long, but we didn't have to plan a route now that we needed a toilet, because she was now going into her stomach bag. So that in itself was like, oh, I have now somewhat of a normal lifestyle. Still was suffering with fatigue, still abdominal pains, because there was still the perianal disease in there. If that's left in for too long, the chances of cancer and everything else coming. So at the back of her head, she always knew she was going to be facing some sort of surgery, whether it was being reattached or the whole large intestine and the rectum canal coming out. So you can imagine I'm getting some quality of life, but still at the back of her mind is like, will I be facing this massive surgery, which Lisa always thought was the worst case scenario growing up. And the more people I speak to from doing this awareness thing, like, they still see surgery as worst case scenario, when it has been the complete opposite nearly for Lisa. So as time went on, the 12 months or so, Lisa went back into James's, she would always be getting iron infusions and stuff. So your second home is nearly in the hospital. So we went into the consultant, and he put it to her in 2019. And I think it was November or so, it was November 2019, I think, and she was faced with the decision to get the full surgery. Her perianal disease was just gone too bad, and he was just pretty much straight out and said the best option is to he said the choice is yours, but the best option for you in order to have somewhat quality of life is to get the full surgery. So the full surgery was her full large intestine and her rectum canal come out.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can imagine that in itself is a massive surgery. So I think it was like, she had a great team, and James is still under them. In the January, they were both January surgeries. In that January, she was in, I think she was in surgery for the guts of 6 and 7 hours to get her large intestine and rectum canal, to get all that disease bowel out. And touch wood, thankfully, her small intestine is good and healthy and in good condition.
Okay. That's intense, man. Yeah. Wow, I didn't know the scale of the story. It's incredible, really, to think about it. And how is she now?
Good. Okay. Yeah, she's good. We're both in a great place, as you said, because we have hit Parenthood.
Yeah. And was that an issue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So once that surgery had happened again, it was 12 months this time of healing. And Lisa...
12 months of healing.
Yeah. We knew that we'd want a family, and it was another kind of marker for Lisa to say yeah to the surgery, because it probably wouldn't have been possible if she didn't take that plunge and get the full surgery to go ahead and have a family with the effects that was going on inside her body. Yeah. So it comes back to that warrior of, you're deciding to have part of your small intestine now was swapped up when the large came out, deciding to be left with part of your intestine out, decide your stomach for a young woman, and have that the rest of your body, or the rest of your life with your body looking like that, to then decide that because you want the family and stuff like that. It's
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
I'm actually sitting here it's just thinking about this, because you told me all of this before. You didn't tell me everything, but I was thinking about actually the process you go through.
Yeah.
And like, I've 2 children now as well, and my partner Jill, I know she's a warrior, and we're lucky enough that we didn't have any underlying conditions, and to have a child for a woman is an incredibly draining thing on your body when you're healthy.
Yeah.
To be able to do that less than a year, give or take, after
so we're
an
about
absolutely massive surgery.
Yeah, so got the recovery done, and then kind of pretty soon after that she fell pregnant. So
That is
it's a telltale sign if she didn't go for that surgery that we probably wouldn't have had our little baby today.
Hello there, just a quick reminder that today's episode is being released specifically to raise awareness and funding for the ISCC, the Irish Society for Colitis and Crohn's Disease, and Mark's 174-kilometre mountain run that he's calling Walk a Mile in My Shoes. The link to support this event will be in the Prymal Instagram bio at Prymal Pro, PRYMALPRO, for the next 2 weeks, and will also be attached in the show notes wherever you're listening to this podcast. So if you can help, Mark and his fiancée Lisa will be so grateful for any support that you can give. Enjoy the rest of the episode. That is insane, man. I'm absolutely delighted for you, but it's an incredible story. Are there people, because this obviously now Lisa is, there's no getting rid of Crohn's disease. You live with this, and she obviously made decisions based on the several different avenues of treatment. She's gone down the surgery route. It seems to be looking quite good. You have a family now. So in terms of relative to your lives, things are definitely improving compared to not having had any treatment at the start and dealing with this condition.
Oh, massively, yeah.
What does the landscape for people suffering this disease look like out there? Is there a range of people who just never have any type of treatment? They don't know they have? Because I'm assuming this is on a scale. Like, some people have mild versions, some people have very severe versions of the same condition. What is the community like out there around Crohn's disease?
It's still grown, I think.
Okay.
Judging from when Lisa was diagnosed, Crohn's was something that men in their 30s would get, not a 10-year-old girl. So there was
very specific.
Yeah. So when she was sitting in hospital, like wondering why she was getting all these pains, and again it comes back to, we'll try tests for this.
Okay.
It's always the last thing they'll test for.
Okay.
Because a 10-year-old girl couldn't be suffering with something that usually men in their 30s or whatever would be getting. So they're
querying all sorts of other issues, appendix
else.
And polycystic ovaries and all that kind of stuff. Okay.
So from people, as you said, like it's like level 1 to level 10. People have so like severe cases of it. The community is grown and grown, as like I've realised through doing this awareness kind of campaign and the event, that it's still not on the scale of, now I know cancer's different, but you know how the awareness and the community that people, so there's still people being diagnosed, there's people being diagnosed in their 40s, there's still young women, and it's just that sense of, oh shit,
okay,
it's like, what do I do, where do I go? It's still, yes, you've been told you have this disease, an incurable disease, and you're going to face the rest of your life, so I can only imagine being told that by a doctor. But the community has grown, the more awareness, and the more to make it seem like it's okay to speak about this disease, because it's not a defect that when you look at somebody and their eye is gone out their head, that you can see that is a disability in itself because they've one eye. This is internal. So when you look and someone's all joyful and happy, but inside they're caving and they're like, it's just debilitating. That in itself, like, people just don't realise. It's like it's a hidden disease, it's a hidden illness. But just to go off back to your point of
that's very important, because again, it's why we're having this conversation, is to try and shed a bit of light, not shed light on Crohn's disease, but kind of explain to people that this is really, really common. It does exist, and just because, like you said, someone's not missing an arm or something like that, it kind of reinforces to you again to just consider what people might be going through. Because we're not all, like, everyone has stuff, and it's everybody's thing is relative to that person, whether it be cancer or Crohn's disease or depression, or you just don't feel, whatever it is, it's relative to that person. But it kind of does reinforce this really important fact that we need to support each other as a community, even if we're not directly touched by something like this, because it's going on everywhere with everything. And I know with particularly with this, a lot of the stuff we're talking about nowadays, it's a lot of mental health stuff, obviously, but like nothing exists in isolation, and somebody like Lisa suffering with this kind of condition, there's massive mental health implications there as well, because you're not feeling good all the time, you're debilitated, you can't live the life you want to lead. But on that point as well, and I know you're okay with this because I asked you beforehand, but in terms of having somebody you love in that kind of position, your partner, you mentioned something very interesting there at the start where you found it kind of frustrating or difficult to understand, and I would imagine part of that was maybe Lisa's own kind of hiding it herself and a level of embarrassment and lack of understanding, which is completely understandable. But what's it like from your point of view? Now, I know for a fact that a lot of people feel that it's difficult to talk about this because you kind of feel a bit selfish, like I don't have this condition, poor me, like. But what is it like? It's very, very important, I think, to discuss this for someone, family members or friends or partners who are close to people who are suffering with anything. It's difficult.
It is. As I said, in the early years I was very ignorant to it, and it was only as we grew together I realised, oh, okay, this is a lot bigger. We start when you meet someone, you're going to the cinema, you're going for food, and like I said, we couldn't go to normal restaurants or Indians or something, so we went to McDonald's, and it'd be just, what would you like? And it'd be the plainest. I was like, don't be afraid. Me thinking, oh, it's a girl, she's not going to eat in front of me. I was like, don't be afraid, just pick whatever way you eat. Like, I don't care. I'm not the person to sit there and judge you. But over time, going to the cinema, do you want popcorn? No, I don't want anything. Again, because it was probably something of fear of her to say it, because she might be afraid that I'd go leg it. Because of what she faces on a daily basis. But it is tough. And as I said, I was quite ignorant to it for a good while, because I didn't fully understand it, and I couldn't wrap my head around how can something not allow you to go for a walk. Like, as again, it comes back to, you're not missing a leg, so why can't you just go up and go for a walk? Like, why can't we just go out here, or when we go out for nights out, because all our friends are quite close, so her bunch of girls are kind of boyfriend and girlfriends with my bunch, so we all have that close-knit friends, so we'd be going out for nights out and it'd be 12 o'clock, and it'd be like, oh, I need to go home. I'm like, we're only you. And it would just be like, I don't, that's why, I don't want to go home. So it took years to kind of get my head around it, to be like, okay, it's 12 or it's 1. I've pushed her now too far. I'm going to peel myself out of that situation. And it's just came for me to realise, right, okay, stop being, and it was for a good while being selfish in my eyes, to be like, well, I want to do these things, but she physically can't. And then it'd be like, well, okay, you need to kind of take your head out of your hole now a little bit and pull it back, because if you really love her, you will realise that these situations are uncomfortable for her. So for you to just be like, oh, well, I'm staying out, is just pure selfishness. So if you're really love this person, you're going to be like, okay, cool, the next time we go out, look, we're going to be out, we'll be out for a while, don't know how long we'll be out, but don't be going, oh, he's going home already, because this is the situation that we face. And then once I kind of got to grips with that realising, okay, we can do things in a different way, you still get them done, okay, but it's going to be on a different timeline, and we'll do them in roundabout ways. It just got that bit easier, and then it's part of life, and you just not accept it in a bad way, but you just get on with it, and you do the things that you want, as I said, but in a different kind of format to just getting up or drinking all night or whatever else. You appreciate the time that bit more and that bit better with friends, with Lisa. You appreciate the short little walk. If you got 1 or 2 hills in, you'll love it that bit more. You just appreciate that bit more. And then as time goes on, if she gets fitter and stronger, it just gets better and better for us as a couple, and now as a family. So it will continue, as she's only had the baby kind of 4 weeks ago. 4 weeks, it's mad, So from now, it's going to be building that energy levels and strength and stuff to go and do things now as a family.
Okay. And what does that, is the kind of, Well, first thing I want to say is probably gives you a real shift in perspective when you start to realise that, because you were a young man, and
Yeah.
I mean, you said the word selfish there, which if you look at it one way, maybe, yeah, but like, we're human beings.
Yeah.
And I think nowadays, when we don't have as much of a sense of community around us, now I'm not sure what your family situation was, if you have good support and stuff like that, but if we don't have we don't have as much of a community around us anymore, you can kind of feel a little bit isolated, and then you feel like you have to make a huge personal sacrifice now to help this person out, because you've no one else to help and it's just you. Sometimes it can feel like that. So it probably does give you a real shift in perspective there, which again was why I think it's so important that we all start to understand a lot more about all this type of stuff, because it can help ease the burden. If we're all kind of, say for example, all of your friends or all of your network back then were very aware of this, and so it wouldn't have been as difficult,
definitely,
and you would have been able to offer Lisa a lot more support. Maybe she wouldn't have felt as anxious and stuff like that. I think ultimately that's what we're trying to get to, because medical advances will happen and surgeries are amazing and all that kind of stuff, but realistically what really helps people stay well is your community,
who's around
the people
you.
you have around you.
And that as well, I think we met when I was 19 and she was 18, so you're young, like you're 18, 19 years of age, and you have lads around you, your group of lads, 18, 19, you want to go out drinking, of course, you're going to go out dancing, nightclubs, and they would have been massively like, who's Crohn's, what's Crohn's, like that, and they wouldn't even have like wanted to learn, but over time when realised like Lisa's not going anywhere, then they begin to learn, and the more you speak about it, and they're like, oh shit, actually maybe we won't push this now as much. But it, like, when you're so young, you want to be doing what all the lads are doing. You want to be doing what all the girls are doing, and because we had such a close bunch, we were all going out drinking and dancing together in nightclubs. So for somebody to want to do that so bad but physically not able to do it was hard. And then it's still to this day, like, there'd be situations where we'd go out, and we're a lot older now, but you still won't be able to stay out till 12 or 3 or 4 that you would have done when you were younger. But
of course.
I
don't want to do that anyway.
You do, just like, it's your couple of hours, you block it off, and that's it. We're here for this amount of time, and it's even with family and stuff, we have this window, this is what we're doing, enjoy the time, and adios, we'll see you in a week or two.
But like you said, you start to structure your life and really appreciate and understand the important things, and you don't take it for granted anymore. Whereas people who don't have issues like this, I mean, everyone has issues, but people who don't have issues like this tend to take a lot of that stuff for granted. But in a way, that's almost a negative thing, because you can kind of just get swept. You don't really have a structure to your life then. You don't really appreciate everything that you do have. And it's very cliched, but having that sense of appreciation and not taking things for granted. I mean, you're doing it on a daily basis now, yourself and Lisa, and you have a beautiful baby now, and you're living every moment of that as a result of living with Crohn's disease, and Lisa having to suffer through this Crohn's disease. And now I'm not saying everyone should have a disease to learn appreciation. I'm saying we can learn major lessons from people as strong as Lisa and yourself, and how you can restructure your life around this. What's the outlook for someone like Lisa going forward in terms of, she's had surgeries, does she need to have more? What does it look like in terms of, do they expect an increase in energy levels and things like that going forwards, or how does it look going forward? Because she's still a very young woman.
She is. So for her now, she was tested before she got the baby, went for scans and stuff, because she was getting some pain up high. So she was thinking this might be the small intestine. She's quite healthy from head to toe now. So touch wood, that lasts for a good while. She's on no medication, nothing at all for quite a while. So that in itself is, as you said, amazing. So all going well. We're healthy. We're moving in the right direction. Still might have to go in and get a bag of iron and stuff, because she doesn't absorb it. But for her and herself, getting recovery, getting out for walks, just building energy and strength. We're going to be strength training in a couple of weeks, just little bits, which is never something. She tried it once or twice, but never something, but is even more keen now because we've the baby. And even in herself, she just wants to get strength. And as I said, strength then comes back to being able to, like, have that bit more freedom of picking your child up, pushing the buggy, lifting the shopping. If you fall on the ground, you can push yourself back up. There's more to it than just someone lifting barbells. There's, like, for me, and even it comes back to as a coach, there's reasons behind why you pick these dumbbells up or you pick a barbell up. It's not to be standing in front of 20,000 people in front of a show doing a like powerlifting competition or people have different reasons to why they lift weights, and that in itself for us as a couple and as a coach is the reason why she's going to be getting into strength training, and then push on from there to keep her in goods.
You're a pro. I love how you bring this back to a real Prymal ethos there. I love that because I'm a huge, now anecdotally over the years I've seen so many incidents where people who were told they would never do A, B, C or D did those things for the reasons that you've just explained there. They wanted to live their life. They ignored, in some cases, medical advice or old school advice or whatever you want to call it, and they went doing certain things like weightlifting is one example, or just things that they knew would promote more ability in their lives to do the things they wanted to do, and all of a sudden, magically, the conditions seem to be held at bay a little bit, and they feel a little bit better. And it's those little bite-sized bits you mentioned at the start. You do one thing and it just leaves a bit of momentum to the next thing and the next thing. So I'm a huge believer in that. And it's like I love hearing that she's come through the surgery, she's recovered, she's had a child, she's off the medication, she's continued, she's considering doing strength training. For me, I'm like, go get it. That's what it's all about. And it doesn't matter if you're not going to go do a weightlifting competition and your goal is to enter the Olympics or anything like that. Like, you are training for life. That's what you're doing.
Exactly.
And as cliched as that might sound, you're training for life. So I think that's amazing. Okay, so you're not just coming on this podcast to talk to raise awareness. You're going to do an event in August.
I am.
Talk us through that a little bit.
So the event that I have planned to do is a mountain road run from where we live now, currently in New Ross, finishing in Marley Park, and that's a total of 174 kilometres, taking in 3,500 metres of elevation gain.
Wow. And over 5K is ultra endurance to me. That's serious going, man.
Yeah, so there's a reason behind it. Again, and it comes back to the fatigue side of things. Judging and seeing Lisa, I always wanted to push myself to a feeling or a state of feeling absolute fatigued. I have hit walls in events and stuff before, but I've never kind of pushed myself to a state where like I feel fatigue is just like you've no choice but to continue on. And that's something that Crohn's sufferers deal with on a daily basis. The fatigue levels, some of them have to get up and go to work. So they're dealing with this on a daily basis. Yes, I'm doing this for hopefully less than 30 hours. It's a short amount of time where these people are dealing with for 60, 70 years of their lives. So it's something small on my part that the name is Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, for this specific reason that I want to walk a mile in her shoes to feel what it might be like when I don't feel like continuing, that I take that next step and take that next step after that.
Okay. And how can people support you? Because it's I love the sentiment behind that. It makes a lot of sense. It really kind of clicks in my brain. That's a fantastic representation of what these people are going through on a small scale. How can people get behind you and support you? So
the best way to do it is head over to the www.idonate page / walk a mile in her shoes, or walk a mile in my shoes, should I say, and donate the price of a cup of coffee, whatever people have available there, we'd really appreciate it, because that goes then to that ISCC community, and hopefully then towards research and stuff like that as well, to try and get some cure and come to the root cause of why people suffer with Crohn's and colitis and everything else.
Amazing.
You can also catch the link is in my bio on Instagram as well, strivecoaching_.
I'll put everything up in the
is another place. It's just, at the end of your fingertips. Instagram, how popular it is these days. Yeah, well, look, as much as we bash it sometimes, it's a very powerful tool for spreading awareness and for building community. I'm not going to let you go just yet. I want to ask a couple of questions about if there's people out there now who maybe they have a partner, maybe they have a family member, maybe they themselves have Crohn's or some form of is there somewhere they can reach out to, someone they can speak to? Is there a community they can reach out to? Is there something they can get involved in? Whatever, this might be someone who's very advanced and has been suffered all their life, or someone who kind of maybe thinks there's something there and not sure where to start. Is there a place where people can reach out to find more information? So the ISCC themselves, so it's the Irish Society Colitis and Crohn's, that would be the number one point to call. The girls there, I've been chatting to them since starting this campaign, are really helpful, really chatty. And especially for new people, I've had a few new people reach out to me over the social media side of things when they've realised what I've been doing. saying they've been recently diagnosed. It's quite a shock and stuff like that. I've found, even Lisa now, having it for the last 17 years, that she's only in the last couple of talking to other people that have Crohn's.
Okay.
I'm sure there's a lot more than the 2 or 3 people that Lisa has talked to in the last, now she knows, couple that she's went from the hospital as a kid the whole way through. They've kept in touch, but very few people talk about it. This should not be something that's hidden or you should be afraid to speak about. Reach out, tell your friends, like go on Instagram, look up all the different Crohn's things, like touch base with these people that are all over social media and just get that weight off your chest that like you have Crohn's, but again, like it's not the end of the world. Something that Lisa has come the last couple of years, you can still do things, you can still live your life, it's just going to be on a different timeline. Yeah. And that in itself, when I even heard that, was like, it's just a little switch goes off and go, oh shit, yeah, like we can still do all these things. If I had heard that at 19, it probably would have been great. Yeah. It would have been game changing. But for people even that are getting diagnosed in their later years, again, just reach out to people. Start at the ISCC. Them guys will point you in the right direction. There's even podcasts now. They have a gut podcast. So learn, like, delve into it. Don't be afraid to speak about it. I found like that is one thing. I'm not going to talk about that because I'm just going to push that under the carpet there.
Yeah.
And because I don't know what it's going to feel like, but I'm sure there's some shame to it. But for a female side of things, to say I sit in the toilet 15, 20 times a day is, like, that's not something you speak about normally.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Yeah, like that's probably where a lot of this shame comes from, because it's to do with the gut and the bowel.
Yeah, you have diarrhea. Like everybody goes to the toilet. 100%. It shouldn't be something that you're ashamed of. Yeah. Do you know? Just that you do a little bit more often, or like some people have this taboo subject that we won't talk about. Women going to the toilet. It's a human. Like it's just a normal bodily function. So just don't be afraid. Yeah, just reach out, chat to people. The more you chat to people, you realise how common it is. And it is a massive weight off their shoulders, because you have somebody there that's similar, or you're going through the same things you do.
Yeah.
And for people that have Crohn's, it's very, very rare that you will always chat to someone or meet someone that's going through the same things or similar situations, and they can just bond and create, and you can see that switch happen. That's like, oh, X, Y, and Z is, I'm at to touch base. And even Lisa, she touched base with a girl that reached out to her having a baby. They were under the same surgeon in Hollis Street. Wow. They were under the same team. She was having a C-section, all this thing, and it was just able to like have that connection with somebody that's down the end of the country or somewhere else, which is great for that, because you can just see the switch in that person when it's you have something to relate, where you and I can relate probably on normal things, where you and Lisa might sit down now for a chat and you just won't have much to relate because you're just two completely different human beings and how you're made up. So
yeah, it's such a powerful message. You delivered it really, really well there as well. It's the coaching as from the podcast. But that message is so powerful in terms, because it's almost become rhetoric or cliche now about reach out and talk to somebody. And again, it's usually in that mental health context.
Mental health side,
But like, there's no separating mental health from wellness for me ever, which is why, and I try and hammer this home. Like, mental health is not something different.
No,
like Lisa and yourself and me, we're all dealing with our mental health in all of our different ways, and we all have different challenges. But reaching out and speaking to somebody, what you said there is exactly, and it pinged me in the brain then when you said it as well, it just lets you know that you can live your life and you are not the only one going through this.
Exactly.
Because except for some super ultra rare conditions that maybe 0.001% of the world have, there are other people who are going through not the same but similar journeys. Exactly. And you can bond and connect and build trust and understanding, and you can, if you try and do this yourself, it's almost impossible with anything, especially something as debilitating as Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to echo what you said there. Reach out, speak to somebody. Don't be ashamed or embarrassed. This is the same stuff that a lot of people say, but it is really, really powerful. And look, you and your partner Lisa are living proof of that now.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, look, I want to wish you the very best.
Appreciate it.
In the event, maybe I'll come out in the car and drive beside you for a couple of K. And I'm going to drop all of the information that people might need about everything you discussed in terms of Crohn's and the ISCC and your event and where they can get in touch and contact you and all that kind of stuff. And you will be launching a podcast.
I will be.
In the next couple of weeks or a couple of months. So I'm going to link to that as well, obviously, when it comes out and people can get in touch and follow your journey. And your actually, little plug, give a shout out. What's the concept of the podcast?
So again, it's kind of ordinary to extraordinary.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Of just ordinary Joe Sobers that can go and achieve extraordinary things, whether it's having heart surgery and running your first marathon, having Crohn's and being able to do X, Y, and Z. So it's just, you don't have to be some sort of superhero or fitness fanatic or freak to achieve these great things. So it's going to be highlighting people's stories that, again, people can come back to it and relate to it and realise that you don't have to be some fitness weirdo to do all these weird things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Amazing. Mark Tobin, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for your time, Dan. I really appreciate being able to come on and chat.
A pleasure.
Thanks, Mel.
I'll see you soon. I'll see you on your podcast. Well done, Mark, on giving us a real insight into life with Crohn's disease. And I just want to wish you the very best of luck with Walk a Mile in My Shoes, which, as I said, is happening on the 14th of August. Once again, if you are in a position to be able to support this great cause, you'll find the link you'll need in our bio over on Instagram at Prymal, Prymalpro, or in the show notes wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you can get all of the info on Mark and the podcast itself on our website over on www.prymal.ie/Mark Tobin. Thank you for listening. Good luck.